Okay, so this is page 1 of chapter 1 in geography. Looking at the Earth is the title. So by definition, geography is the study of the distribution and interaction of physical and human features on the Earth. Basically, that's a big, long definition of saying that geography is the study of people and places. Basically, you can put everything into that. We talk about the 5 themes of geography. They are location, place, region, human environment interaction, and movement. I recently showed a video about the 5 themes, and I hadn't really heard this before, but the way to remember this is Mr. Help. And I was going to reorganize this list into this order, but so movement, region is Mr. Human environment, that's H-E. Location, L, and place, the P, for Mr. Help. So if you remember that, as you're trying to get through that list to identify those 5 themes, that might help you. Mr. Help. And then this is a student's, I don't know who, somebody out on the internet, their geography assignment that talks about the 5 themes. Okay, so one of those 5 themes is location, and we can divide location into 2 parts. One, absolute location. We've talked about latitude and longitude. That's how you can find an absolute location on the Earth, or where you live if you have a physical address, and that physical address is an exact or absolute location. Relative location describes a place in relation to others. So if somebody says, well, I live in Fillmore, and you're talking to somebody and they say, well, I'm not sure where that is. And you say, well, we're 100 miles south of Provo. Oh, okay, I've heard of Provo. So then they can understand where it is in relationship to Provo. Or maybe wherever they are, they would understand the proximity or direction that you might live in. So absolute and relative. Okay, hemisphere is each half of the globe. So we have 2 hemispheres at a time that you can divide the Earth into. So obviously we have the northern and southern hemisphere and the eastern and western. And I usually show students there are 2 more hemispheres. So I had to grab my globe, and I'll do this in class, but I think I can see where it is. Okay, so if you look at the globe right there, you can see, I've actually never looked at it from this direction because I'm always showing the students. So there's a view, okay, and we turn it around, and this is the other view, okay, like that. So what you're looking at, I don't know where I picked this up, where I heard it, but the first one was a land hemisphere, and the second, of course, a water hemisphere. The first one you saw a lot of land, and the second view, mostly water. So I thought that was pretty cool, so I want to make sure and show everybody that. And then, of course, in our brain, we have a left and a right hemisphere. So it's dividing something into 2 halves. Okay, the equator, imaginary line that divides the northern and southern halves of the Earth. So one thing also is that the northern hemisphere has more countries than the south. And the tropics we will talk about later, I think in chapter 3. For weather and climate seasons. Okay, prime meridian is the other line, an imaginary line that divides the Earth into eastern and western halves. So the equator is the longest line of latitude, and that's why it was chosen as 0 degrees, and there's only one, okay, north or south of the equator. Lines of latitude are also called parallels because they are parallel to each other. Whereas the prime meridian is talking about lines of longitude. And this line of the prime meridian goes through the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, England, Greenwich or Greenwich, whichever you want, in London there. And a group of scientists, I believe it was the late 1800s, got together, and that was why they had this meeting, was to decide where are we going to have the prime meridian. They thought, well, gee, since we're meeting here, let's have it here. And so from that point on, everybody accepted the fact that the prime meridian would be on that line of longitude. Okay? So latitude, set of imaginary lines that run parallel to the equator. The equator is designated as the 0-degree line of latitude. And you can see how it starts out in the middle, goes up to 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, and then 90 straight up. And a lot of kids, when I say what's at the top and bottom, rarely do they say 90 degrees. But if I say, here's your equator, and here's the North Pole, then they see that 90-degree angle, and they can figure it out pretty quick. Okay? Longitude, a set of imaginary lines that go around the Earth over the poles. The prime meridian is the 0-degree line for longitude. So basically they are 180 circles that go around the Earth, and they go, every one of them goes exactly the same place over over the north and over the south poles. So we have 180 lines in both directions, okay? So we go to the west, clear around to 180. We go to the east, clear around to 180. And we have a total of 360, which creates the circle. And the prime meridian is important to know because lines of longitude are called meridians. And since we've identified that one as 0, it is called the prime meridian, or the best. Okay, globes and maps. A globe is a 3-dimensional representation of the Earth. Maps are 2-dimensional graphic representations of selected parts of the Earth's surface. So depending on what you want to look at or what you want to do, then a different map might work for you. So if you want to sail on a ship, if you want to fly a plane, if you want to hike a mountain, hiking a mountain this map wouldn't help you much. But flying a plane, it might. Smaller maps obviously would be better if you're hiking. And so the globe is the actual shape. We can't say size because of course it's a much smaller size of the Earth, but it's the actual shape. And so that's a positive thing or an advantage. A disadvantage is you don't see a lot of detail, can't stick it in your pocket, whereas a map you can fold up, pack it with you, and it can be a map of a smaller area, more detailed. So those are some disadvantages and advantages of each. Okay? A cartographer is a map maker. Some of these old maps are pretty cool. They have sometimes old creatures in the water. Here's an old sailing ship. Anyways, you look at this old map, even though it's not super accurate, it's close, and you can tell what it is. This is South America. Here's part of North America, and you can actually even see Cuba and Florida. And so cartography, certainly much different today than what they were doing back then. Okay, a map projection is a way of drawing the Earth's surface that reduces distortion caused by presenting a round Earth on a flat paper. So it's like taking an orange, cutting it in half, scooping out all the good stuff, putting it face down, or inside down, I guess, and then trying to flatten it. And if you do, it's going to tear. So this projection, you can see, has some of those tears. So there's less distortion with that one. This one is a Mercator. Along the equator is fairly accurate, but as you go north, it's not, because the Earth goes in, it gets smaller towards the top. And this Peters is bigger at the bottom and gets crunched up to the top. So it just depends on which one of those you want that would help you the most. And that's our first page. This is the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, England. So you can actually straddle the prime meridian. The line goes right through there. And that's page 1. Thank you.